7. Wittgenstein. It is difficult to comment on Ludwig Wittgenstein, 1889 to 1951, not only because of the difficulty of understanding his disorganized jottings, but also because his many followers, a strange swarm of eunuchs, buzz angrily if anyone differs with what Viach has called the precise esoteric interpretation that a thorough Wittgensteinian would want to place upon the text. Wittgenstein's concern was not with existence, but with language, and his famous slogan was, "The meaning is the use." As Barrett has summed it up, Bertrand Russell, in analysing language, felt that to exist is to satisfy a propositional function, that is, satisfy the equation. As a purist in logic, Wittgenstein sought to separate existence and logic, although with poor success. Wittgenstein's requirements of language were hard and precise. He would have agreed with Sartre's rejection of the unconscious. For Wittgenstein, 5.6. The limits of my language mean the limits of my world. 5.61. Logic pervades the world. The limits of the world are also its limits. So we cannot say in logic, the world has this in it and this, but not that. For that would appear to presuppose that we were excluding certain possibilities, and this cannot be the case, since it would require that logic should go beyond the limits of the world, for only in that way could it view those limits from the other side as well. We cannot think what we cannot think, so what we cannot think, we cannot say either. 5.62. This remark provides the key to the problem, how much truth there is in solipsism. For what the solipsist means is quite correct, only it cannot be said, but makes itself manifest. The world is my world. This is manifest in the fact that the limits of language which alone I understand, means the limits of my world. The world and life are one. For such a philosophy, the traditional problems of philosophy are irrelevant, and the questions troubling existentialism are also irrelevant. True, Wittgenstein speaks of objects and facts, but these terms have no reference, as Levi pointed out, to an outside world. So quixotic is this usage that it is not always easy to remember that Wittgenstein is not talking about a material but a logical space, and that this universe has more in common with Leibniz's universe of logical possibilities than with a Newtonian universe of spatio-temporal actualities. Only such a distinction permits us to recognize that the efforts of the Tractatus are not directed toward the establishment of specifications for an adequate, ordinary language, but for an artificial language analogous to that of Principia Mathematica. Wittgenstein himself made this clear. Laws, like the principles of sufficient reason, etc., are about the net, and not about what the net describes. 6.35. In fact, all propositions are of equal value. 6.4. However, Wittgenstein recognized that the sense of the world must lie outside the world. 6.41. However, that quote-unquote sense, if the term can be used, lies outside and beyond the world to the point of being irrelevant. And so, it is impossible for there to be propositions of ethics. Propositions can express nothing of what is higher. 6.42. The charge of mysticism, accepted by some and rejected by other Wittgensteinians, rests on this assumption. Wittgenstein stated that his propositions were steps to be transcended to see the world aright, 6.54, and then enter apparently into silence, 7. Wittgenstein's philosophy is thus not concerned with truth, but rather with a pursuit of meaning and sense, to cite Maslow's phrase. Wittgenstein worked to limit the scope of language and to make it precise within those limits. Engelmann's statement of that achievement, intended as favourable, is especially telling. The positive achievement of Wittgenstein, which has so far met with complete incomprehension, is his pointing to what is manifest in a proposition, and what is manifest in it a proposition cannot also state explicitly. The poet's sentences, for instance, achieve their effects not through what they say, but what is manifest in them, and the same holds for music, which also says nothing. It is true that Wittgenstein's insistence on a logical language makes it militate, as High pointed out, against the verbal games played by neo-orthodox theologians, but it must be added that it militates even more against the language of Christian orthodoxy and its insistence on propositional truth. In no sense can Wittgenstein be seen as congenial to Christian orthodoxy. Wittgenstein's hand is raised against all those champions of truth who are blessed possessors, who have a deposit of truth as their foundation. According to Wittgenstein, at bottom, the whole Weltanschauung of the modern involves the illusion that the so-called laws of nature are explanations of natural phenomena. 6.371. This he restated in the Tractatus. The whole modern conception of the world is founded on the illusion that the so-called laws of nature are the explanations of natural phenomena. According to Wittgenstein, there are two Godheads, the world's and my independent I. Thus, a basic dualism appears, but it does not trouble Wittgenstein. The dualism he has worked to overcome is that there are abstract entities called meanings which exist above and over the words that express them and the people who utter them. The world and man exist independently, both without any truth. Wittgenstein's interest is not in truth, but in language, and language is an instrument. 569. In fact, look at the sentence as an instrument and at its sense as its employment. 421. Just as a hammer, pliers, saw, and other tools each has its function, so all words have their varying functions. But what is their function? It is not truth, but rather meaning and sense. But what meaning and sense exist without truth? Language is an instrument. But for what purpose? Granted his original premises, the paranoid patient of a mental institution is strictly logical, and his language is instrumental to his presuppositions. In Wittgenstein, philosophy ended in a sick monologue. The other is no threat. The gate to the other and to the beyond has been shut. A man remains inside himself, sick and dying. Wittgenstein apparently saw this himself. On the flyleaf of Moritz Schlick's copy of the Tractatus, Wittgenstein wrote, Jeder dieser Satz ist der Ausdruck einer Krankheit. Every one of these propositions is the expression of an illness. My guess is that this Krankheit was due, at least on the philosophical level, to the conflict between Wittgenstein's growing positivistic convictions and his metaphysical tendencies. In the background of his pithy pronouncements, one hears not only the clear voices of Frege and Russell, but the muffled voices of Kant, Schopenhauer, Plato, and even St. Augustine. And this conflict is reflected even in Wittgenstein's vocabulary. Maslow pointed out that, for Wittgenstein, a significant language means simplicity, simple elements and atomic facts, but Wittgenstein provides no satisfactory criterion for simplicity. The only criterion of simplicity is one established by ourselves, not found in the world. Wittgenstein's My Independent I reigns all alone over nothing, but his success is due precisely to the fact that his philosophy is the expression of an illness. In the modern world, there are many sick minds. In 1918, Sherwood Anderson observed of Edward Lee Masters, author of Spoon River Anthology, I got the notion fixed in my mind that his, Masters' successes had been founded on hatred. Not only Masters' success, but also that of many others since, has been founded on hatred and illness. In the world of the sick, the sickest are kings.